Welcome back to part 2 of the 2001 A Space Odyssey Clavius spacesuit replica build. This is a video about the chest box and backpack. Just going to go over some of the highlights of these two pieces for the suit. A lot of the manufacturing just basically cloned the same techniques as discussed in the helmet video. Again, you can see more detail when you click on the link below on the instructables page and see detailed photographs of how this was put together and more understanding as to some of the details that may not be covered in the videos. But this is the chest box that goes on the front of the suit, and as I said, it's been printed with PLA filament on a filament Creality CR10 printer. It used the same settings of a 0.6 millimeter nozzle, 0.18 layer height, and this has a 15% infill, just because it's not anything real structural that has to be super sturdy. It's just a box that's just going to hang on the front of the suit. So I tried to keep it as light as possible. The chest box is hollow on the inside, and we're going to open it up here momentarily, and I'll show you what's inside. But the only difference with this piece versus the helmet is that when it was finished, I did not use Bondo or spot putty to finish it off smooth. I tried the resin, brushing the resin on the components after they were glued together, and then sanded the resin. I brushed it on there and set it outside. The sun cured it, and I really liked how it sanded, and it was pretty good. But what made it difficult was in the corners. You have to keep it on there very thin and follow it layer after layer, because it will collect and run in the corners, and if you're not careful, it will put a big glob in those corners, and then it becomes something like this, becomes very hard to sand out. And I found that out after the fact. So this was my first foray into learning how to get rid of layer lines using resin. I'm going to do it again. I'll be practicing that technique, but overall I'm pleased with how it came out. I do have a paint run here and here, but this is all resin where I couldn't really sand that out. So once that was all sanded, I followed the same techniques as spray painting as I did in the helmet. But now here I followed to be as close as I could to the replica of the chest box that was up for auction here a couple years ago. And in the late 60s, when they filmed the movie, a lot of props just had painted graphics on it to give it dimension on film. And that's what I replicated here, like this white square and this white square. That was on the original. So I went ahead and tried to approximate that as closely as possible. Again, the same thing with lettering that was on the unit as well. Same thing with the decals as the helmet. I use a decal sheet from a hobby store, and that's pretty much how I put it all together. All of these individual parts were 3D printed and then glued on using CA glue or a construction adhesive. The LEDs, I'm gonna flip it over and we'll show you the inside. It's very straightforward. The hardware here was just cut out of a 2-inch piece of aluminum bar, and I just put some stamps on there to kind of give it some authenticity, if you will, give it a little bit more detail for points of interest. USAA is the United States Aeronautical Association, or Administration rather, that's in the movie, and this threads into a 1/4-20 insert that's in the that's epoxied into the into the chest box. So I put a little bit of tape here just so I could quickly pull this off. And there's my on-off button for the lights. And all I have in there is just a battery pack with 4 AA batteries. Yeah, that's a little excessive for 2 little LEDs, but I went that route because I had it. And so it's just the surplus battery pack. And I have the resistors underneath the LEDs, and the 220 ohm resistors, 1 each for each of the LEDs, and just the on-off push button here in the lid. And so you can see it hopefully in there that I made this hollow as much as possible so that it would lighten up this prop from being overly heavy. So I do have a thick 5mm wall thickness on here. I probably could have gone down to 3mm, but the thinner you go, then you start getting dimensional issues and warpage. So I decided just to stay with 5mm. And you can see the seam here is kind of rough, and where I epoxied it and put some staple clips in it like I discussed before. But it's good enough for the back, so nobody's going to look at it on the back. And that's pretty much the build right there. Hope you like it, and let's get on with the backpack.